Hi, classmates. I'm Erin Kerr, and I chose Chapter 9, Affect and Emotion in a Restorative School. The chapter begins on page 200, and it focuses on using restorative practices by teachers in classrooms. The opening reminds us of how challenging it is to be a teacher and how teaching is obviously intellectual in nature, but it's also moral and it is emotional, and that teachers are in a very public forum. The students' eyes are on them, their administrators are watching them, the parents are watching them, as well as their colleagues, and it can create a lot of pressure for teachers. A teacher who understands how to use and leverage the tools of restorative practice can better impart their subject matter and also give at-risk and all students the experience of belonging, attention, care, and confidence so that they can feel the sense of achievement and pride and self-esteem, and restorative practices enables that. I have a saying, you cannot transmit something you haven't got. The chapter suggests that it could be really helpful for teachers to be really aware of their own compass of shame responses, which are avoidance, withdrawal, attack other, and attack self, as well as their own unique attachment scripts from their past for several reasons. The first reason is that when they can rightly interpret their own feelings of shame and then employ tools to transform those into guilt responses, if possible, they can mentor their students to do the same thing. Shame is painful as it calls into question the worth and value of the whole person, but it also can be helpful to motivate change. Guilt, on the other hand, is tied to behaviors which are more easily changed and don't threaten the self per se. But guilt also can be maladaptive when someone takes too much responsibility for everything. Teachers must develop emotional coping strategies that they can then use to coach their students to use. Also in the chapter, it calls about the master and apprentice dynamic, and teachers who have done their own work can help their students do that emotional work to transform shame into adaptive guilt. The second reason is the recognition that of cognitive shock. It's a concept that is discussed in Chapter 9. It oftentimes appears as student disrespect or willful disengagement, but when shame is triggered, oftentimes the student loses the ability to really think clearly. The body language looks like a slumping over, an averting of the gaze, a disengagement. Neuroscience suggests that it takes a human being about 20 minutes to recover from cognitive shock. And that's useful information for teachers so that they don't add insult to injury when a student is withdrawing in that way. Another useful restorative practice tool for teachers to use is to really understand the 9 innate affects adapted by Tompkins. In an ideal classroom setting, the goal is to lead students to alternate between interest, excitement as a new topic is introduced, and the teacher's interest is going toward the students through affective resonance, and students get excited, and then when they learn it and master, they go to enjoyment and joy. And so the ideal classroom, the ideal flow would be to have the students engaged, going into interest and excitement, learning the material, down to enjoyment and joy, back into interest, and so forth. That's on page 217 of the text. Everyone has the same 9 affects, but everyone is completely unique in their past history and their biography that they bring with them into the classroom. Circles can really help to regulate large groups of people so that the affective resonance or the mirroring that humans automatically do with each other emotionally can mirror calm and interest rather than negative affect. especially in groups of humans that large, as a classroom. So circles are a really good tool to create a resonating sense of calm. Also, the circle leverages the central blueprint in that it, even if it starts with bad feelings of shame, that nature is to alleviate those bad feelings through increasing positive affect and decreasing negative affect through transmuting the shame into behavioral solutions. Also, students get the attention that sometimes they lack at home, and they also get empathy and compassion from the circle. When the teacher slash facilitator uses restorative questions, the harm is redefined as a maladaptive behavior. The group can collaborate with new ideas for new behaviors, and healing and growth can happen. And it was encouraging that the chapter cited some research that even severely abused and neglected students, through restorative practices, can change and heal their shame responses all the way into adulthood. So that was encouraging. The behaviors can avert what the author calls the spiral of shame, and that is when a teacher reacts to the shame behaviors and defenses of students with their own shame defenses. The situation in a classroom can lead to maladaptive outcomes, embarrassing and chaotic episodes that no teacher really wants to have on their records. So the spiral of shame is something for teachers to be aware of. Restorative practices is a way to avert that and avoid that. Lastly, a well-facilitated circle helps teachers and students to use the social discipline window and for everyone to stay with one another versus sending them away to detention or expulsion, with support strategies to cope emotionally, and then lots of strategies for a lot of ideas, uh, solutions coming from all members of the group on how to succeed academically and socially. So, the key takeaway from chapter 9 for me was the realization really that everything, even the logical and scientific and rational subject matter that oftentimes teachers are trying to impart, at its core is motivated by emotion and affect. And so, a teacher that can meet their students there emotionally and support them will facilitate an easier learning of the subject material that they're trying to teach. And restorative practices can help teachers do the important work of intellectual, moral, and emotional labor. Thank you so much.